Hello folks, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about a particular issue on a Baofeng radio rather than reviewing a specific radio, which is what I usually do on my channel. It's in response to a question that I see recurring quite often, and that I've been asked personally about a few times, and that is about an issue that occurs when trying to scan a frequency range on the Baofeng radio. This seems to apply, this particular issue seems to apply on most of the newer colour screen Baofeng radios, not so much on the older models like the UV5R, etc. What the issue actually is, I'll demonstrate now. I have three sample radios set up here from left to right. The orange radio is a Baofeng UV17 Pro GPS. The middle radio is a Baofeng UV-K6, and the little radio on the end is the new Baofeng UV5R Mini. But they all suffer from this same issue when trying to do a scan in VFO. What you're doing when you're scanning in VFO basically is you're trying to scan the range of frequencies that the radio covers for a particular band. Now all of these three radios here are tri-band radios, so they operate on 2 meter band, the 70 centimeter band, and also on the 1.25 meter band. So what happens is, when, for instance, we'll take the little K6 here as an example. If I wish to commence a scan in VFO, not channel mode now, please understand that this is scan is relating to scanning not your saved programmed channels in channel mode. This is about scanning in VFO, in frequency mode, in the radio's frequency mode. In other words, you don't want to scan specific frequencies that you've stored on your radio. You just want to scan everything that's out there that the radio can pick up in a particular band, be that the 2 meter, 70 centimeter, or 1.25 meter. So what happens is, as you can see at the minute, I have in VFO on the top VFO there, I have 145,500 entered in there. But say I wanted to scan this little radio's entire band range for 2 meters, which in this case would be 136 to 174 megahertz, which is the range that the K6 can cover on 2 meters. So if I wanted to start a scan at 136 megahertz, I would input that frequency, and we'd go
136,000.
So okay, I want to start my scan in VFO at 136 megahertz and scan right up to the radio's upper limit on 2 meters, which in this case is 174 megahertz. So I should be able to scan from 136 to 174 megahertz and be able to pick up anything that is transmitting within that range. So on most of the Baofeng models, you initiate a scan by long pressing the bottom right hand key It's not always the case, but generally speaking, on most of the colour screen Baofeng models, you initiate a scan by long pressing the bottom right hand key, and in the case of the K6 here we can see that that is the #Z key right down in the bottom right hand corner. So we'll initiate our scan starting from 136 megahertz, and we'll long press our #Z key on the bottom, and we'll see what happens.
Scanning begin.
And there you see, there is the issue. Instead of starting at 136 megahertz, the radio has started at 400 megahertz, which is the bottom limit of the UHF 70 centimeter band on the radio. We don't want the radio to do that. We want it to scan in from 136 megahertz on the 2 meter band. So why does the radio keep doing this?
Scanning start.
And we can see that it's quite common across the Baofeng range. If we try that again on the little UV5R Mini here, again, we're top frequency, we'll put in 136 megahertz.
136 0 0 0.
And again, we'll try to commence a scan in VFO from 136 megahertz and see if we encounter a similar issue on the UV5R Mini. Again, we'll use the bottom right hand key, which in the case of the UV5R Mini is the little hash and with an up arrow on it on the bottom right hand corner of the radio. But again, we'll long press that button to commence a scan.
Scanning begin.
Again, the radio jumps to 400 megahertz instead of starting at 136 megahertz. So this,
Scanning stop.
the little UV5R Mini is suffering from the same ailment. Again, if we take the UV17 Pro GPS and we're in VFO mode, and if we start at 136,
136 0 0 0.
And again, we'll try to commence the scan in the 2 meter band on the UV17 Pro GPS by long pressing the bottom right key, which again is, in this case, is the #Z key on the bottom right hand corner. If we long press that,
Scan now.
again, this annoying problem keeps occurring that instead of starting in VHF at 136 megahertz, the radio is skipping to 400 megahertz. So this
Scan off.
problem can be solved quite simply. And what the issue is here is that the radio must be set to the particular band that you wish to scan before commencing a scan. In other words, if you wish to scan the 2 meter band, you have to input a setting on the radio for the radio to scan that particular band. Otherwise, it will default to the radio's 400 megahertz to 520 megahertz or whatever the particular model is. But anyway, it will default to the radio's UHF 70 centimeter band instead of starting on the 2 meter band. So what is this setting that we have to adjust? Excuse the interruption there. The setting that we have to adjust on the Baofeng radio is known as the frequency range. And quite often you'll find this in the radio's menu and it'll be misspelled as frequency ranger. I don't know why Baofeng haven't addressed that problem, but it's still there. But what you're looking for on the radio and the menu is the frequency range of the radio. And that is the setting that we have to adjust first before we can commence a scan in VFO mode for a particular band that the radio uses. So in the case of the little K6 here, if we're wondering, well, what bands does my radio actually cover? The easiest way to find that out is to remove the battery on the radio. So in the case of the K6, if we remove the battery on the radio and we take the battery out and we look on the radio body itself, not on the battery, on the radio body itself, we will find a sticker. And on that sticker, you'll find printed the bands that the particular model is actually capable of operating on. And in the case of this K6, we can see that it covers the 2 meter band from 136 to 174 megahertz. It covers the 1.25 meter band from 200 to 260 megahertz, and it covers the UHF 70 centimeter band from 400 to 520 megahertz. So now we know what actual bands and what frequencies the radio is capable of receiving. So now what we want to do, as I said before we can commence a scan on a particular band, we have to set the frequency range that we wish to scan beforehand. If you don't do that, the radio will simply default to this UHF 400 to 470 or 520, whatever it happens to be for a particular model. In other words, it will keep defaulting to the 70 centimeter band on your radio, not the 2 meter or the 1.25 meters band, radio dependent, of course, on whether it covers that, whether it's a tri-band or dual band. It will default anyway to the 70 centimeter band, which is very annoying if you just want to scan your radio's 2 meter or 1.25 meter band. So where is this setting?
Frequency mode.
Well, it will vary depending on the radio model, but the one thing they all have in common, that the setting you're looking for is entitled frequency range. So we need to look for that in the menu. So on the K6 radio, we'll press our menu button and we'll see if we can find this frequency range, or misspelled frequency ranger setting. So we'll go in here.
Menu.
We're on our menu here, so we'll start and we'll scroll through the menu items. Now I happen to know that the frequency range setting on the K6 is menu item number 15. And there we see it is VFO frequency range, RANG. It's abbreviated to FREQ RANG, and that's frequency range. Now, at the moment, you will see that the frequency range that is set is the default for the radio, which is 400 to 520 megahertz, which means that every time you initiate a scan on this radio, if you haven't changed that setting, the radio will default to that default setting, and it will commence a scan from 400 megahertz, even when you want to scan from 136 megahertz. So what we have to do is we have to change that setting on our radio in order to enable us to scan the band that we wish to scan. So we'll press our button and we'll see it's currently 400 to 520. So instead of 400 to 520, we're going to put in 1. No, sorry, I've hit the wrong button there. Get back to the menu item 415. Radio timed out on me there. So there we are, 400 to 520. We want to change that to 1. Done it wrong again. I'll have to press the menu button to get into that menu. That's what I'm doing wrong. 400 to 520, so we hit menu, and a little arrow will come up indicating that we can now change that setting. So we'll put in 1, 3, 6 to 5 to 0. No, I beg your pardon, we'll not put in 520. You can't do that. We want to scan the VHF frequency range of the radio,
Menu.
which is
1,
3, 6
6,
to 1, 7, 4, which is the VHF frequency range of the Baofeng K6. So we'll confirm that setting, and we have now changed the frequency range from 136 to 174 on the radio. So in other words, whenever we start a scan in VFO on this radio from now on, it will start from 136 and not from 400 megahertz as it previously did. And we'll just try that now, because remember before when we tried to start a scan from 136,
1, 3, 6, 0, 0, 0.
the radio kept defaulting to 400 megahertz. But now that we've changed that setting in frequency range, we can now commence a scan from 136. So we long press our bottom right hand key,
Scanning begin.
and there, at last, the radio is no longer jumping from 136 up to 400 megahertz, which is what it was doing beforehand. It's now scanning the 2 meter band on the radio instead of jumping to 400 megahertz and scanning the UHF 70 centimeter band. So that's what you have to do. If you wish to scan in VFO a particular band that the radio covers, you have to first set that frequency range setting on the radio. Now the inverse applies, of course, because if I wished to scan from 400 megahertz,
4, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
and with my frequency range now set from 136 to 174, you'll see what happens.
Scanning begin.
It starts at 136 instead of 400. So the inverse happens. In order to be able to do a UHF scan, we'll
Scanning start.
have to go into our menu
Menu.
and change our frequency range setting back to what it was previously, which is the default setting,
4,
400
0, 0,
to
5, 2, 0.
520 megahertz.
Confirmed.
And now, if we want to start a scan at 400 megahertz,
4, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Scanning begin.
we can see that the radio is now quite happy to start and do a scan in the UHF 400 to 520 megahertz frequency that the radio covers.
Scanning start.
So that's basically what the frequency range is about in a Baofeng radio. If you wish to scan a particular band on a Baofeng radio in VFO, you first must adjust that frequency range setting. If you don't do that, the radio will default to commencing a scan at 400 megahertz. And it's the same for all three of these models here. We can do the same on the little UV5R Mini here. Again, if we start a scan at 136,
1, 3, 6, 0, 0, 0.
and we try to commence a scan at 136 without adjusting the frequency range setting,
Scanning begin.
again, it commences at 400 megahertz instead of 136 megahertz.
Scanning stop.
So what we have to do, we have to go into our menu.
Menu.
It's slightly different in the layout of the UV5R Mini menu settings, because the menu is laid out in subcategories instead of having one big long list. The menu has subcategories, and we can see that the very first category concerns scan on the UV5R Mini. So if we go in there, the very first item at the top, and we can see that it is in fact misspelled. Instead of frequency range, we're getting frequency ranger. But anyway, we know what it means. It's the frequency range of the radio. And if we go in there into scan, frequency range, we'll see that the default, again, on the UV5R Mini is 400 to 470. And we don't want that if we want to scan the VHF 2 meter range of the radio, which is, of course, is 136 to 174. So we have to alter that frequency range setting.
Menu.
So we go into scan, frequency range, frequency ranger, and instead of 400, we'll put in 1,
1, 3, 6,
2,
1, 7, 7.
oh, sorry, I made a mistake there. Just come out of that. My big ham-fisted fingers there. Excuse.
Frequency mode. Menu.
Frequency range, 1,
1,
3, 6,
1,
1, 7,
4.
and hit OK.
Confirm.
Now, come out of there, and again, we want to start a scan in 136.
3, 6, 0, 0, 0.
Will it default back to 400 since we've changed that setting? Well, it shouldn't. So let's commence the scan. Long press the bottom right hand key.
Scanning begin.
No, it doesn't default back to 400 because we have changed the frequency range of the radio from 400 to 470. We have changed it to 136 to 174. And that, my friends, is what you must do. And again, it applies to different models.
Scanning stop.
It may not always be in the same place in the menu, but what you're looking for is the frequency range setting on your radio. If we have a look at the UV17
Frequency mode.
Pro GPS, again, in the menu settings, it's again in a slightly different order, but if we go into the scan setting on the UV17 Pro GPS, there at the very top we have our famously misspelled frequency ranger. So if we go in there, have a look, you can see by default it's set to 400 to 470, and if we want to scan on our UV17 Pro GPS and VFO, and we want to start our scan at 136, we have to change that setting. We have to change it from its default of 400 to 470, we have to change that to 136, 174, and then you'll be able to scan the 2 meter band on your Baofeng UV17 Pro GPS. Same for all three of these radios. You have to set the frequency range of your radio before you can commence a scan in VFO. Remember that this applies only to scanning in VFO, not to scanning in channel mode on your radio, where you are scanning a set of stored frequencies on your radio. This is scanning in VFO, where there are no stored frequencies. You're just instead wanting to scan the entire band of your radio. And obviously the frequency range will vary from model to model, and the actual number of bands will vary from model to model. For instance, the little UV5R Mini here is only dual band, whereas these other two radios are tri-band. They cover 2 meters, 70 centimeters and 1.25 meters, whereas the little UV5R Mini here only covers 2 meters and 70 centimeters. But nonetheless, the procedure is the same for all three of them. If you wish to scan whichever band you wish to scan, be that the 2 meter, 70 centimeter, you have to set that frequency range first before you can commence a scan. If you don't do that, and you can try to, for instance, commence a scan on the 2 meter band while your frequency range is set to 70 centimeter band, then the radio will keep defaulting to that 70 centimeter band until you change that setting. So that's it, folks. I hope that wasn't too confusing, and I hope it has helped to explain that issue that I know a lot of people are having, and they find it frustrating when they want to commence, a frequency on their Baofeng and VFO, and they find that it keeps jumping from the frequency they're starting at to the default, which on the Baofeng is the UHF 70 centimeter band. If you want to scan a frequency outside of that, then you must first set the frequency range of your radio via the radio's menu. And I've showed you how to do that on these 3 particular models. Interestingly, and just as a side note, on the old Baofeng UV5R, the old non-colour screen radio from old, you don't actually have that issue at all.
Frequency mode.
If you want to start a scan in frequency mode on the old UV5R, you just hit the scan button. Now at the minute we're on 136. If I start a scan,
Scanning begin.
off she goes. No problem. It doesn't jump to 400. So this issue is sort of unique to the newer model colour screen Baofengs. In other words, that you have to set the frequency range before you can commence a scan and VFO, whereas you don't actually have to do it on the old much loved UV5R. It's simpler. Again, if you want to start a scan at 400 megahertz on the old UV5R,
0, 0, 0, 0.
hit the scan button. Saving something there, so we'll start a scan. Off she goes, and she'll quite happily start a scan at 400 or whatever. The radio
Scanning begin.
doesn't have the limitation that the new colour screen ones have. It's quite happy to start a scan in either UHF or VHF 2 meter or 70 centimeter bands. This issue is confined to the majority of the newer colour screen Baofengs. This frequency range setting is confined to them, and you have to ensure that you set the frequency range that you wish to scan before attempting to do a scan on when the radio is in VFO frequency mode. So hope you enjoyed the video, folks. Again, I tried to make it as simple as possible, and I hope my explanation and a few errors that I made while making this didn't detract too much from the point I was trying to get across. Basically, if you wish to commence a scan in VFO frequency mode on your Baofeng radio on the newer colour screen ones, you first have to set the frequency range that you wish to scan, be that 2 meters, 70 centimeters, 1.25 meters if it does it. You have to set that frequency range first in the menu. Otherwise, the radio will keep defaulting back to 400, starting a scan at 400 megahertz. So there you have it, folks. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like that. And thanks again for watching. A bit different from the usual one. It's not just a simple review of a radio, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. And thanks very much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye for now.